thinking within this process?
Critical thinking. Now, for me, that's a very strange question, because if you follow a research cycle, it's full of critical thinking, because you read and question the literature, okay? You analyze and you redevelop, in fact, concepts. You develop things and critical choose instruments. For instance, I'm in favor of Daisy and Ryan, but they're also in other instruments. In the MSLQ, for instance, you also can use it. This critical thinking, what is it? Well, critical thinking is asking questions. Now, we often even give training to professors in how to ask good questions. If you always ask questions about what is, that's very basic. But if you say compare, or what is the advantages of the disadvantage, or when you apply this theory, what is explained, what is not explained, that's critical thinking. Critical thinking is related to the level of your questions. Now, if you go to a research cycle, in a research cycle, continuously you ask high-level questions. For instance, I get data. What's the quality of my data? What do I do if the quality of my data is a little bit, you know that, normality. The measurement, is it normal, my distribution? Okay. No, oh, I'm afraid. Catherine, you know. And then you go to the non-parametric test. Non-parametric tests, they are bad, they are weak. No. Okay. Because they're high quality, non-parametric tests. They're more strict. They have other assumptions. So it's full of critical thinking is, in fact, not simply accepting knowledge, but doing something with that knowledge and being confronted with the reality. And we all know that when we test theories and test hypotheses, a lot is going wrong. And there's a lot of bias in the literature. In the literature, you only see the success stories. Again, I had an article where we really described in detail why something failed. Okay? And then we got a review, and it says we don't publish failures. So you can't learn something from a failure? Okay? You do it all the time. You all do it. So for me, it's a strange question, because the moment you move to research-based learning, you continuously, it's critical. A hard question from a hard scientist. Will this change the academic laws and the salaries of the professors? I have no experience that it ever made professors unemployed. Moreover, I saw that professors loved it because they have now more time for their research. And in our system, the more research you do, the more output you get, the more money you get for doing research. There is no relationship whatever with your academic position. Instead, no, even in contrast, you're required as a professor to teaching, research, and service to the community. This approach allows you, in fact, to have more research done and to do what you're being paid for. But it doesn't change the law. Even if you look at the new law, for instance, for master's programs in Ecuador, it requires you to do this. In the things you will have to enter online in the environment, you will have to say, where is the research in your course? So this is perfectly in line with the law. And I never saw people getting into trouble with this. The only thing was that when they did it, for instance, with undergraduate students, that the link between the research and the knowledge domain became sometimes very weak. And then the students said, you are being used. That was the only complaint I ever had. But I don't see whether the law changed. Do you have an example of how it would change?
How many hours per course?
Okay. How many hours per course? Well, do I have to work more for my course? I would say yes. But the hours I work more for my course is because I'm busy with my research. Do I need this? Also, a lot of the work, for instance, the design of the activities, is not done by the professors. It's done by the researchers. The only thing I do, for instance, and the colleagues, is they develop a format. And if you could see it, my examples, they always follow the same format. Always. Okay? Objectives, description, materials, okay? Procedure, reporting, evaluation. Always. All the information is there. And so the PhD students, they take the lead in developing the protocols, procedures. They prepare the instruments in the labs. We use a lot of computer labs for our work. They prepare that. It's not me. Of course, if I don't have a research team, then I have to do it alone. But then you become a little bit more modest in your approach. But I don't care working more, okay, on my course if it's research. I don't care, because that's my main job. And by the way, I'm doing this all online. My students now have exams, but even when I travel, I monitor the work of my students, because everything is online. And then there is a clear mix between research and teaching.
I've got a question. This is a process obviously that cannot happen just from one semester to the next semester. So it's a process that takes time. In your experience with the different countries you've been in, how long does this process take since we start until it's fully developed in?
The main time-consuming thing that I always see in organizations is this: getting this in order, and then linking this to the curriculum. And then we discover that we have to change a little bit the curriculum. So the first step is always, what is the validity of all these courses in fact, our master's program? And then it becomes sometimes very annoying that you discover, well, this course has been there for years because we have that professor. Not because we need this course. So, and then that's the main activity. But mostly within 1 year, a new program is run. And then maybe not the 12 courses in the program of the first year will already have been remodeled, but maybe already 3, 4, and then the next year more, and the next year more. Okay. But you need a minimum amount to change. Otherwise, the students will say, who is that crazy professor doing in another way? In the other courses, we can sit back and relax. And he is making us work. He is paid to doing the job and to teach us. So you need, in fact, quite 1/3, in fact, at least, of the courses have to adopt this new approach to start with. Otherwise, you will have strange reactions of students, because it's an inconsistent curriculum. But within 1 year of time, you can do it. Because mostly, at least a number of people are doing research in relation to their courses. What often happens is that after 2 or 3 years, that courses shift to other professors, to other teams, because it fits better in my research. So, and then they don't go down in the work they have, but it shifts a little bit more. So within 1 year, it's possible. 2, 3. Okay.
What about the resources and the basic skills needed to start the?
Yeah, very good question. So you need some preliminary training in basic skills. Now,
Also,
we were talking mainly now about the master's level. So the moment you enter master's level, in our conception, you should have all the preliminary skills. But still then, because you really will work in reality with field work, I would recommend to have a kind of generic course where you revisit, in fact, all these skills. How do you handle laboratories, for instance, especially when you work with chemical elements and so on? Okay. But in many cases, for instance, if it's more in informatics, there it's easier because there is a continuum there. But I would then include one, if a generic course, we revise, in fact, all these prerequisites. On the other hand, you still need time to learn it. Okay. Don't add here reading literature and so on. No, that's something you can do in relation to all the courses. But it's the very critical ones have to be there. And it's especially when you work with costly instruments, okay, or with consumables, then it's better to do. Or you work with animals and viruses and bacteria. Then, so to have a kind of level of safety, I would then recommend to have this refresher course tough checklists, check whether they meet the standards, and then we can involve them in the procedure. Okay. But it's a